The country's health system may get overwhelmed or might not be able to handle more than it can once restrictions on all sectors and industries are relaxed, according to an infectious disease specialist. President Rodrigo Duterte is expected to decide today on the enhanced community quarantine over Metro Manila and other parts of the country. The Metro Manila Council finalizes its proposal to the IATF on the status of the NCR after May 15. IATF to identify areas in which schools may conduct face-to-face classes when schools reopen. Japan reopens some businesses. A Malaysian schoolgirl juggles schoolwork, playtime, and sewing protective gowns, playing her part in the COVID-19 battle.
President Rodrigo Duterte is expected to decide on the restrictions prevailing all over Metro Manila and other areas amid the coronavirus crisis. This evening, the President is meeting with the Interagency Task Force against coronavirus disease and hear out its recommendations on the enhanced community quarantine, whether to lift the ECQ, extend it, or whatnot. What the Metro Manila mayors have to lay out on the table will also be carefully thought of. Rosalie Cos has more details why.
Malacanang reveals that President Rodrigo Duterte will meet with the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases today. On the table are the IATF's recommendation on the enhanced community quarantine in the National Capital Region and other areas still under ECQ. According to Presidential Spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque, President Duterte is expected to decide on the matter today, which is 4 days before the ECQ period lapses. They will also tackle the Metro Manila Council's proposal on the matter.
Ang narinig ko lang is some municipalities and barangays posibleng magkaroon pa rin ng ECQ. Pero pwede po yung magbago, no? Kasi ang datos dumarating po as we speak, no?
Secretary Roque reminds the public that whatever the President's decision is, everyone must take precautionary measures and observe discipline to prevent the second wave of the coronavirus disease.
We are still under community quarantine. Life will not be back to normal hanggang wala pong bakuna.
Meanwhile, according to Secretary Roque, if the President decides to extend the ECQ for yet another time and there is a need for the provision of a third tranche of the Social Amelioration Program, the government will look for sources of additional funds. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Now here's something final. The Metro Manila Council has come up with 3 recommendations that will become the basis of the IATF COVID-19 on what comes after May 15 in the NCR or National Capital Region. The Metro Manila mayors are looking at 3 scenarios: extension, relaxing, or modified. Joanano clarifies why.
In an interview with Metro Manila Council Chairman Edwin Olivares in Get It Straight with Daniel Razon today, the Parañaque City Mayor said their group has come up with 3 possible scenarios after May 15. 1. Extending the ECQ for another 15 days, that's May 16 to 30. 2. Relaxing the restrictions in entire Metro Manila and downgrading to general community quarantine. And 3. Implementing a modified community quarantine. Mayor Olivares clarifies the proposal includes placing several barangays under lockdown.
Kasi napakahirap naman po kapag po dinesisyonan ng ating IATF na meron po mga syudad na ECQ at GCQ, ang amin pong pakuwari, ang amin pong pag-aaral po, ang ating pong NCR is interconnected. So mas mahihirapan po tayong magpa-implement kung may portion na ECQ at GCQ. Pero hindi katulad po kung barangay lang po siya, makokontrol po natin po yan.
Under modified community quarantine, local government units could focus on mass testing in barangays where there are growing numbers of COVID-19 cases. This would allow for immediate isolation and treatment of COVID-19 patients. The local governments shall also be in charge of further distributing relief items and assistance to their constituents.
Hindi po pwedeng lumabas po yung tao doon po sa kanilang particular needs na kailangan lang, yung essential lang po ang kailangan po nila. Pero yung mga non-essential talaga, sila po ay naka-lockdown po doon. At yung particularly po, yung pong trabaho po doon sa loob ng barangay, doon sa non-essential, hindi po magbubukas po siya. Para limited lang po yung ating pong ikokontrol na lockdown.
Mayor Olivares emphasizes that the Metro Manila Council can only recommend, but it's the IATF to decide. The Metro Manila mayors say they will support and abide by whatever the national government's decision will be. Joanna, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippines' health system might be overwhelmed when the restrictions in all sectors are relaxed. This was the warning of an infectious disease specialist. Aiko Miguel tells us why.
Experts are worried that after May 15, the number of COVID-19 cases in the country will further mount. The national government decides to relax the imposed restrictions. They fear that if Filipinos become complacent, a third wave of coronavirus infections might occur, and that would lead to an overwhelmed health system. That means not enough beds for COVID-19 patients, no available isolation rooms, and no ventilator for critical cases. Dr. Edsel Salvana, director of the Institute of Molecular Biology and Biotechnology at the UPNIH, says that when cases triple, the Philippines might become like other countries that had to choose which patients must be prioritized, treated, or saved.
Some countries have done well. Some countries have actually had some very horrific death rates and very horrific case numbers. As much as possible, we have to sustain yung mga gains na nakuha natin.
The Department of Health admits that in Metro Manila, hospitals are nearing their maximum capacity to respond to the medical needs of COVID-19 patients.
Marami pa rin ang unoccupied, hindi pa nagagamit, ibig sabihin. So, we are not reaching that max yet, but of course, hindi namin itatago na really here in the National Capital Region, medyo nandun na tayo sa point na kalapit na tayong maka-reach dun sa max.
Based on a DOH report this afternoon, there are almost 800 ICU beds, more than 1,700 ward beds, over 5,000 isolation beds, and nearly 1,500 mechanical ventilators available. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
1,000 tests, that's the target the Mandaluyong city government has during the 3-day lockdown of Barangay Mauay. As of today, more than 20 residents await confirmatory testing. Vincent Arboleda explains why.
The first day of the 3-day lockdown in Barangay Mauay in Mandaluyong City is about to end hours from now. The lockdown has been placed not only to restrict the movement of residents and in turn limit the transmission of coronavirus, but also to conduct mass testing. The Mandaluyong City government uses rapid test kits in the barangay through the random sampling method. The City Health Office targets to test 1,000 individuals. When a result comes back positive, the case will be brought to the city's isolation facility for a confirmatory PCR test.
Meron na rin po tayong swabbing team doon na isa-swab po sila, and then we send their results sa Philippine Red Cross. Until nag-aantay po tayo ng resulta, they will stay muna sa ating isolation facility.
As for the allegations surrounding the implementation of the barangay lockdown, the city government refutes what the Mauay barangay chairman alleges, that there was no coordination between the city government and barangay officials before the lockdown was imposed.
Nagkausap po kami ng aming health center physician na nakipag-usap po sa kay barangay captain.
The Mandaluyong LGU also said it is not true the relief goods was distributed in Mauay only once, because May 9 was the 4th wave of food pack delivery there. As of 4 p.m. today, 120 individuals have undergone rapid testing. 21 of those turned out positive and are now awaiting for confirmatory testing. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, a lot of industries are hit by the impact of the coronavirus pandemic since the implementation of the ECQ and lockdowns. City bus drivers and conductors are not an exception. especially that mass transport will remain restricted even in the scenario of general community quarantine. They are worried that they could no longer deliver the basic needs of their families who depend on them, not even food on the dining table. Asher Kadapan Jr. reports why.
The wages of some drivers and conductors of city buses that operate in Metro Manila are based on the daily profit they remit to their bus companies. Now, they are faced with a challenge. Only 50% of the bus capacity will be occupied by passengers once the national government decides to downgrade the community quarantine in the NCR to general community quarantine. This means less income for them.
Ang matitira sa amin, baka wala pa sa kalahati. Ganun po ang magiging epekto nito. Papayag ako sa arawan. Kasi kung babase sa porsintuhan, wala. Ay, papagod lang kami.
On the other hand, conductors like Edison Gonzalez worry more about the implementation of the TAP payment system or the automated fare collection, which aims for lesser to no contact among drivers, conductors, and passengers.
Ang inaalala namin, kaming mga konduktor, goodbye. Wala kaming trabaho.
They just hope their companies and the government would come up with programs to support and provide livelihood in case they get displaced from their jobs. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meantime, Harleen is on board the UNTV radio mobile booth rolling along EDSA. Harleen, how is it going there in your location?
Hello, William and Jago. We are here in EDSA Shaw Boulevard near MRT Shaw Boulevard Station. And outside, we can see few cars and motorcycles passing by and even some of our frontliners who are on their way home. And Jago, William, we are expecting a change in the scenario in the coming days should the enhanced community quarantine or ECQ be lifted on May 15 and we transition to general community quarantine or GCQ afterwards. As we all know, the government has allowed partial operations for public transport. But for now, Jago William, all we can do is to wait for the official announcement coming from the palace. Still on public transport, the Land Transportation and Franchising Regulatory Board prepares to rationalize the routes of buses that ply Metro Manila busiest road, or what used to be the busiest, that's before COVID. This rationalization is part of the agency's efforts to transition to new normal under the general community quarantine.
Nangyari po na out of 96 routes, 61 of these passes through EDSA. Ibig po sabihin nito, it does not start or end at EDSA. It passes through EDSA. And that's the reason why it's a daily picture that we see na yung traffic congestion, lalong-lalo na sa mga buses, makikita natin sa daan. We were looking at a system now where there would be a dedicated EDSA bus service, where all the other bus routes coming from wherever, north, south, east, southeast, southwest, will now converge into EDSA as the main corridor.
Meanwhile, now let's take a closer look at the updated tally of the coronavirus cases around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has now reached a total of more than 4,118,000 confirmed cases in 187 countries, regions, and sovereignty. The fast-spreading disease has claimed nearly 283,000 lives, while over 1.4 billion patients across the globe have recovered. The United States of America, or USA, remains to have the most confirmed cases in the world, with a total of more than 1,329,000 known cases and over 79,500 deaths. Now, as you will notice, Russia now has the third most numbers of known coronavirus positive cases. Last week, it was fifth. Turkey remains to be the country outside the USA and Europe with the most number of cases, now reaching over 138,000. Meanwhile, the Philippines Department of Health reported today that as of 4 p.m., 292 new cases have been recorded, bringing the total known cases in the country to 11,086. We have lost 7 more patients. Now, the country's death toll due to COVID-19 stands at 726. With the help of our valiant medical frontliners, 75 more people have won their battle against the invisible enemy. That brings the total recoveries nationwide to 1,999.
Every city, every town is preparing for the new normal. But Manila City is first gearing up for more COVID-19 patients. That's in case the public is allowed to go outdoors already and restrictions are relaxed. Dante Amento tells us why.
Manila City Mayor Francisco Isko Moreno Domagoso admits that the probability of COVID-19 contagion in the city is high, due with a huge Manila population. Thus, the local chief executive says they are preparing several facilities that can accommodate 500 beds for COVID-19 cases.
Anybody na mag-positive sa RTK, dadalhin sa quarantine facilities. Out na kagad sa community. From there, we'll go and swab them.
The city will use sports venues like those in Tondo, Patricia, and the Pitan Sports Complex as quarantine facilities. Elsewhere, in Araulio High School covered court, the construction of a quarantine facility is underway. The city also targets a 100-bed hospital for COVID-19 positives. The mayor adds it is part of their preparations for the transition to the new normal or general community quarantine when more people are allowed outdoors.
So that we can address the maybe, and hopefully not, the exponential growth of people get exposed because there's GCQ already or normalization. So we have to address buhay at kabuhayan simultaneously.
Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, not all schools may conduct face-to-face classes. Well, everyone is actually expecting a new normal in schools. Yes, in-person classes will be permitted when schools reopen on August 24, but only in areas identified by the IATF. Joe Anano has the details why.
Face-to-face classes will be permitted only in areas where there is zero COVID-19 cases or there are low numbers of coronavirus positives. This is according to DepEd Secretary Leonor Briones. There's also a limit of 15 to 20 students only in every classroom. Physical distancing must be strictly observed. Schools must be compliant with the minimum health standards set by the Department of Health and the IATF EID.
There are also places na zero ang levels like Bohol. Nagkaroon sila ng 2, pero ngayon under control na. We have to get clearance from IATF and the DOH.
Magkakaroon po ng flexibility ang mga division and regional offices namin to plan their own delivery approach. Ang magiging contextualization or choice ng mga eskwelahan will depend on the local public health situation. So definitely kung sa locality ay hindi po pwede ang face-to-face, huwag nang piliin yung delivery mode na yon.
Private schools can start their classes earlier than August 24. Still, face-to-face classes are prohibited. Meanwhile, the Presidential Communications Operations Office has allowed the Education Department to use the government's TV and radio stations as alternative media in teaching students in the country under the new normal. This is for the benefit of students who don't have electronic gadgets and internet connection to access learning. And due to compressed school calendars, schools may also conduct classes even on Saturdays and Sundays. DepEd reiterates that although there will be a big adjustment with the system of learning in the coming school year, they are confident that students can access quality education despite the coronavirus pandemic. Johanna, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Local government units with poor performance in the distribution of the Social Amelioration Fund for qualified beneficiaries in their locality will face a show cause order. LGUs were expected to have finished the distribution yesterday, May 10th. But the Department of Social Welfare and Development says as long as there is a fund to give out, local governments may continue to reach the beneficiaries. Meanwhile, local government units who are slow in distribution will have to explain to the DILG the reason for incurring backlog. Ilagan reports why.
Of the more than 1,600 local government units nationwide, 91% met the deadline of distribution of cash aid from the government under the Social Amelioration Program. That translates to 1,265 local governments. Those with high payout include Caraga region that reached an impressive 100%, Bicol region 99.96%, Sorsogon 98.92%, Cordillera Administrative Region 96.8%, and Metro Manila 85%. But DILG Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya says they have instructed city and municipal governments to continue giving the remaining SAP funds until the DSWD orders them to return the money.
Ang sabi namin sa mga LGU, so long as na hindi binabawi ng DSWD yung pondo, tuloy-tuloy lang yung kanilang pamimigay hanggat umabot sa 100% yung mga LGUs na hanggang ngayon ay hindi pa rin nakakatapos.
According to Undersecretary Malaya, also, only 9% of the total qualified beneficiaries have yet to receive the cash assistance under SAP. The DILG, however, emphasizes that local governments that had been slow in the distribution will face a show cause order and explain why they have backlogs. LGUs proved to have irregularities in dispensing the funds will be properly charged.
Yun sa mga napakabagal, may show cause sila, and then kung hindi ka tanggap yung kanilang paliwanag, that will lead to an administrative case for dereliction of duty and misconduct sa Office of the Ombudsman.
Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Quezon City Police District says that more than 10 of its officials and personnel have tested positive for coronavirus disease 2019. These police officers are frontliners in the COVID-19 battle. The QCPD assures contacts of those positive cases will be traced. Now, the Philippine National Police's Camp Karingal, located in Quezon City, has been placed under lockdown. Via Ilagan has more details. Tell us why.
The Quezon City Police District Headquarters, Camp Karingal, is now on 3-day lockdown since yesterday. This move comes after 13 QCPD members assigned in the camp tested positive for coronavirus disease 2019. In a text message obtained by UNTV News and Rescue addressed to the Philippine National Police Chief and members of the command group, it says that 219 QCPD personnel underwent swab tests last April 25 to 29. 115 results have been released, while 104 others have yet to arrive. 14 results came out positive for coronavirus infection. One of those cases is a member of the Joint Task Force NCR. 9 are police commissioned officers and 4 others are police non-commissioned officers. The 13 QCPD personnel have been transported to various NCRPO quarantine facilities for isolation. Authorities are working on finding the contacts of these positive cases. The contamination of Camp Karingal is underway. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
A committee in the House of Representatives has ordered the National Telecommunications Commission to explain why it should not be held in contempt after it issued a cease and desist order against ABS-CBN. The House Committee on Legislative Franchises has given the National Telecommunications Commission, or NTC, 72 hours or 3 days to explain why it should not be held in contempt following its order to stop the broadcast operations of ABS-CBN. This was after the NTC broke its commitment before the House Committee last March 10 that it would grant a provisional authority to the media network to continue operating once its franchise expires, while its franchise renewal application is pending in Congress. The order was sent to NTC Commissioner Gamaliel Cordoba, Deputy Commissioners Edgardo Cabarrios and Delilah Deles, and NTC Legal Branch Head Attorney Ella Bianca Lopez. According to Committee Chair Palawan 1st District Representative Franz Alvarez, the act of NTC constitutes quote-unquote undue interference on and disobedience to the exercise of power of the lower house. He adds it is also an affront to Congress's dignity and an inexcusable disrespect of its authority. Meanwhile, 13 senators filed a proposed measure seeking to grant a provisional authority to ABS-CBN. The senators explained in Senate Bill number 1521 that the non-renewal of the media network's franchise will result in the loss of jobs of its 11,000 employees. The bill also noted the economic contributions of the network, including its multi-billion tax contributions, as well as its role amid the pandemic when the public is in need not only of reliable sources of information but also of entertainment. On the other hand, the Supreme Court earlier said the petition made by the network before the SC has been referred to a member in charge. However, it declined to name the justice for confidentiality under the internal rules of the Supreme Court.
The Joint Task Force COVID Shield discourages the public from returning to their hometowns in provinces once the ECQ is lifted. Police Lieutenant General Guillermo Lorenzo Eliazar, the Joint Task Force COVID Shield commander, explained that the threat of coronavirus infection remains high and that there's a risk for some of those who would go back to their homes may unknowingly carry the killer virus. General Eliazar underscores that lifting the ECQ is not a go signal to go back to hometown. He says they will not allow that. He adds that PNP Chief General Archie Francisco Gamboa has instructed all police commanders to coordinate with local government, especially at the barangay level, to determine the number of locally stranded individuals in their respective areas of jurisdiction. The JTF COVID Shield expects all the local government units to come up with a guideline in dealing with those returning constituents who are trapped in other areas, especially in places where the coronavirus disease or COVID-19 are high. The PNP also appeals to the public to continue exercising preventive measures to protect themselves, especially those who are eager to go back to work. Religious organizations must submit their plans to local government units on how they will ensure physical distancing in their gatherings. This is Malacanang's response on the appeal to allow religious services in general community quarantine areas. A religious organization has earlier submitted detailed guidelines to the Interagency Task Force against COVID-19 on how they will avoid crowded gatherings while implementing social distancing measures.
Ang tumutol po talaga mga local officials. Kasi ang sabi nila, there is no way we can implement social distancing sa ating mga simbahan at saka sa ating mga other places of worship kasi hindi naman sila po pwede pumasok doon habang sumasamba. So, kinakailangan po talaga magkaroon ng close coordination between the different churches and their local government units. At sila po mismo, they have to present a plan to the local government units na magpapatupad ng quarantine kung paano nila i-implement ang social distancing.
The Food and Drug Administration warns the public of the claims of promoters and manufacturers of so-called antiviral masks. The FDA says those face coverings are unapproved and those claims are misleading. So if you are planning on buying face masks, be vigilant of such deceptive marketing strategies. The FDA explains that ear loop face masks shall not in any way cure and specially kill viruses and bacteria like influenza and SARS. The FDA reiterates that as of this time, there are no specific treatments for COVID-19. The agency also warns the public not to patronize COVID-19 antibody test kits sold online.
Philippine Coast Guard Task Unit RT-PCR Commander Rear Admiral Joseph Coimet today visited the Palacio de Maynila Testing Center. According to the PCG, as of 1 p.m. today, 389 OFWs from various quarantine hotels in Metro Manila underwent the RT-PCR testing for COVID-19. The Overseas Workers Welfare Administration and various manning and shipping agencies scheduled the testing. They also coordinated the OFW's transportation from their hotels to the testing facility. The test results will be forwarded to the Bureau of Quarantine as the authorized agency to release the results and give the clearance for OFWs who will test negative for the disease. And yesterday, a total of 114 land-based and sea-based OFWs currently serving their quarantine at hotels in Makati safely underwent RT-PCR testing for COVID-19 administered by PCG medical personnel. Their data were encoded accordingly. Their swab samples were successfully forwarded to the Philippine Red Cross Laboratory for analysis. The results will also be forwarded to the Bureau of Quarantine for the authorized release and issuance of certificates to those who yielded negative results. The Philippines Department of Foreign Affairs reports today that the total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases among Filipinos abroad is now at 2,195. That number includes 17 new confirmed cases. 2 more patients have recovered, but 7 new deaths have been recorded from the Americas, Europe, and the Middle East. The DFA confirms that Europe and Middle East remains as the hotspots of confirmed cases among Filipinos abroad. On the other hand, most recoveries are reported in the Asia and Pacific at 239 cases, and most number of deaths recorded in the Americas at 142. And for the news abroad, here's RL Camilla live from Japan. RL, good evening.
Good evening, William.
You got for us.
William, here in Japan, some prefectures are resuming business as the government malls lifting before the end of this month. The state of emergency placed in a bid to stop the coronavirus transmission. More than 30 prefectures are expected to have restrictions eased, while Tokyo is likely to stay under the emergency declaration. The state of emergency came into effect for the capital and 6 other prefectures on April 7. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's government has since extended the state of emergencies nationwide. On Thursday, there's a plan of discussing the lifting of the state of emergency for certain prefectures at an experts panel meeting. One of the expected factors to be considered will be whether places are seeing a decline in weekly new cases in proportion to regional population. Japan now has over 15,000 confirmed cases. The death toll stands at more than 630. If it fails to come out of bankruptcy, Latin America's second largest airline would be one of the first major carriers worldwide to go under as a result of the pandemic, which has crippled world travel. Beverly Sison will tell us why.
Latin America's second largest airline, Avianca Holdings, filed for bankruptcy on Sunday, May 10th, after failing to meet a bond payment deadline. While its pleas for coronavirus aid from Colombia's government have so far been unsuccessful. Avianca has not flown a regularly scheduled passenger flight since late last month. and most of its 20,000 employees have gone without pay through the crisis. While Avianca was already weak before the coronavirus outbreak, its bankruptcy filing highlights the challenges for airlines that cannot count on state rescues or on such help coming fast enough. Avianca is still hoping for a government bailout. Avianca, the second oldest continually operating airline in the world after KLM, had $7.3 billion in debts in 2019. The airline filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in New York and said it would continue operations while it restructured its debts. Avianca has no certain date to resume operations as its main hubs, Colombia, El Salvador, and Peru, have all shut down air traffic in a bid to stop coronavirus transmission. Beverly Saison, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Elsewhere in Wuhan, the city worst hit by the coronavirus pandemic in China, on Sunday launched its first regular international air freight flight. The flight links Wuhan with Osaka City in Japan. The all-cargo air route is operated by a Boeing 737-900 aircraft of a private airline of Omer, and the aircraft is scheduled to fly 7 times per week with a maximum load of 15 tons according to airport officials. The flight will operate on a daily basis from May 10 onward. The outbound flight will send epidemic prevention and control supplies to here in Japan, and the inbound plane will ship Japanese cross-border e-commerce products back to Wuhan. That's according to Xi Feng, business manager of a local e-commerce company, Dadao Kai. In addition to regular air freight route, the Wuhan Tianhe International Airport has also been using passenger planes for international freight transport since the lockdown was lifted on April 8. Chartered flights for international freight have been made available between Wuhan and major cities including Los Angeles, Melbourne, Paris, and Frankfurt. Another regular air freight route will open in late May to link Wuhan and Tokyo. In France today, after 55 days of strict confinement, the French government started to ease restrictions imposed to fight COVID-19. French citizens are now able to exit their homes without government paperwork. They can also head back to work when necessary. But when on public transport, it is mandatory for each commuter to wear a face mask. 135 euros fine faces any passenger seen not wearing a face covering. France tiptoed out of one of Europe's strictest coronavirus lockdown, reopening shops, factories, and some schools to revive the economy, but wary of the risks of a second wave of infections. Business can now reopen providing they put in place safety precautions. However, people can travel only up to 100 kilometers. That's unless for professional reasons or funerals or caring for the sick. And in Bangladesh, people in densely packed Dhaka slums are living at high risks of contracting COVID-19, according to residents. Nearly 650,000 people reside in around 3,400 slums in the capital, according to the Rural Development Minister last year. Many of the dwellers are daily wage laborers or domestic helpers and have been out of a job during the pandemic. The extreme poverty and the lack of information means some slum dwellers may not be fully aware of the coronavirus situation in Bangladesh. Almost all are feeling its impact. Hospitals in the capital have been providing virus tests, but many slum residents said they were not aware of anyone who had been tested. Bangladesh reported a total of 14,657 cases of the virus on Sunday with 228 deaths. And those are the reasons behind the stories here in Japan and other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Thank you, R.L. Camilla, reporting live from Japan.
For many kids, being in quarantine is equal to boredom, loneliness, and no playtime with fellow children. But for a schoolgirl in Malaysia, it is a time to play a small part in the battle with the coronavirus. She didn't even hesitate to volunteer her special skills she learned from her mom, sewing. Nina Armilio tells the story why.
9-year-old Nur Afia Cristina Zamsuri didn't quite understand what the new coronavirus is before, but she knew it's been turning countries upside down. When she heard that the local hospital was looking for people to sew protective gear, she said aye unhesitatingly. At age 5, Nur Afia learned how to sew while watching her mother Hasna Hood, herself a tailor, make some clothes. Nur Afia can now make 4 full PPE gowns a day. The Malaysian schoolgirl juggles playtime, online classes, and her volunteer work within the day. Early in the morning, she does schoolwork. Then when she's done with schoolwork, she starts stitching again. Since early March, she has made 130 gowns for 2 nearby hospitals. This month, she has been working on 60 more pieces. Hasna Hood said her daughter became more motivated after seeing photos of health workers wearing the gowns she made. While for District Education Officer Megat Afandi, a 9-year-old who can produce 160 pieces of PPE gown is enough to be proud of. Malaysia has reported nearly 6,500 infections, including over 100 deaths. The country imposed widespread movement curbs to stem the virus outbreak on March 18, though some restrictions were eased earlier this month. Nina Armilio, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Our kasangbahay, we are at a time when the country is under a state of health emergency. The cooperation of all Filipinos is imperative to avoid the further spread of the deadly virus.
We are calling on everyone to be calm, and most importantly, let us join together in prayer for our country and for the whole world to survive this crisis.
You may join us in our daily UNTV community prayer at these hours as flashed on your screens. And those are the reasons behind the news, May 11, 2020. I am Harleen Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And I am Angelo Castro III. But you know, so always ask why. Good evening.